Welcome to In the Mix, a DJ series. I'm your host, DJ RunDat. I'm on a mission to inspire and support you in reaching your goals in life and business. Do you want to know the secrets to growing a profitable DJ business? Tune in to hear real-life stories from DJs across the globe who have grown successful DJ businesses. Hi, welcome to In the Mix, a DJ series. I'm your host, DJ RunDat. Today I have a very special guest, DJ Fernando G. Welcome.
Hey, sister, how are you?
I'm doing so good. How are you?
I'm doing great, having fun and the best I can in quarantine.
Right? That's all we can do.
Yeah,
I keep reminding myself, like, just have fun, whatever you're doing. It's
yeah.
like mental health is so important right now. And we've all had a very challenging year in the entertainment industry and every industry, really. And bringing music to people brings us so much joy. And now we get to find creative ways to do it, not in person. And.
Exactly. It's funny because I think being in quarantine helped us DJs get our creative juices flowing once again, and I know I was kind of a little complacent for a little while to where I was just kind of going with the flow, doing the routine, events, DJing, and that was it. And when we got locked up, it was time to do something new. So,
Yeah. Absolutely. It's definitely about really getting creative. What can we do? I keep saying, what can we do? What is
exactly.
in our control? There's so much that's not in our control. But lucky
Yep.
for you, you have a history of being in the music industry and radio and voiceovers and so many things. You've been DJing for over 30 years. So, how did you get started?
I got introduced to turntables in the late 70s by my older brother Marco. My parents moved us to Central America for 3 years. My dad was doing some work and stuff. And so we ended up moving over there. And the first year I was there with my younger brother. But then the second year, my older brother came over and he showed up with what he was calling his stereo system. And I was like, okay, cool. We're going to be able to play music and records and stuff. But when he shows up with two turntables and a mixer. And I'm like, what in the world is this? And he had this big library of music. Um, and I was used to listening to the disco and rock that was on the radio, but he was bringing stuff that was like totally brand new to me. And he brought all the new wave stuff that was starting to kick in, some high energy disco that was starting to flow in the nightclubs, which wasn't in the radio, realm. And I was just like, what is this? So I immediately, got intrigued by it. And even though he tried to explain it to me, I mean, I was like, what? It was like, and I couldn't get it. So the only thing that I knew how to do at the time was cue up the record, put the crossfader to one side, let the other record play, and then I would just cut to the other song. So I was just having fun like that. And it just started off doing little parties for my family, like, holidays and stuff. And then he did his first gig over there. He ended up renting a ballroom at a hotel over there. And he says, help me build some lights. And so we literally build this box, two boxes with just regular lights. And we put these color gels over them. And we created these buttons and stuff so that it would kind of chase. And he just had this whole vision. He was just putting it all together. And he says, you do this, put this there, put that this, and just kind of guiding me. So we did that first event. And when I saw, how the people were going crazy for all the music that he was playing, we're talking about like B-52s, Devo, the Cars, and of course a bunch of other Giorgio Moroder, Donna Summer stuff that was just like, really taking off. And I just saw the people going crazy, having a great time. I said, I gotta get into this. I gotta get into this. So that was kind of like the beginning of how I got introduced to DJing, and kind of took it from there.
Yeah, I love that. Oh man. And then you got into radio. So how did that happen?
Well, my father, again, worked in radio his entire life. And so when we moved over there is because the radio station that he was working at here in Los Angeles got closed down. So he was trying to work, get gigs and stuff. And he was in the Spanish market. So there was not a lot of radio stations. There was like two radio stations in Spanish back in the 70s. So he ended up going back to Central America and getting a gig on air there, until things, opened up back here in the States. And so I grew up around radio my entire life. I remember going to the studios and stuff, and my dad teaching me how to edit on reel to reel. And back then we used the carts, the 8-track tape carts, we used to put in there and cue them up. And I would mess around and record things and just be goofy and stuff. And so in 1989, my good buddy Richard Vision, DJ Richard Vision, calls me up, and he was working at Power 106 here in Los Angeles, which at the time was the number one radio station in all of Southern California. And he was working in their music research department, and says, "Bro," he goes, "there's an opening. You want in?" And I said, "Yeah, let's do it." He goes, "You got to come right now." He goes, "You're going to talk to this girl Faye. She's going to interview you, and if things go right, you're going to get hired on the spot." And yeah, sure enough, I got hired on the spot, and it was like my dream to be on air at Power 106. So I said, somehow, some way, I got to work my way up, and hopefully I can make that happen. Um, I ended up becoming the music research director, which was the department that I was working in. And I told the program director, I said, my goal is to one day be on air. And he says, well, work your way up, let's see what you can do. So the music research department, I was in the evenings, because we were calling people up and saying, "Hey, we used to say that we were from media research." It was kind of funny, because we would, play music for people and say, "What do you think about that song? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Is it unfamiliar? Do you hate it? Is it burnt out and stuff?" And we'd get like, little tallies on all the songs. So we were just doing research on songs and to see which ones were going to hit or not on the air. And of course I had to do all the reports and stuff. So that was in the evening. So I asked the program director, "What else can I do?" And he says, "Well," he goes, "I need a board op for the Casey Kasem's top 40 on Sunday mornings." He goes, "You'd have to be here at 5 a.m. and you'll be done at 10." I was like, "Let's do it." So I went in, I got the training, and back in those days, the shows would come in on reel to reels, and it was, 4 reels and stuff. And I had to learn the one thing that I didn't learn prior to that was tails in, tails out, which meant that you had to look at the box and special instructions. And I forget what it was. Tails in meant that it was okay, it was perfect. You just put it on and play it. Tails out meant that you had to rewind the whole thing and do it and put it on before you could air it. Otherwise, when you hit play, it was going to come out backwards. Like, well, one of those reel to reels just did happen to be that backwards. And I ended up playing it for a split second. I was like, I freaked out that first day. And I just end up doing putting a commercial in real quick and doing it as fast as I could. And I played a song real fast and then popped it back in and got back on track. But it was quite embarrassing, but it was my first day. So what the heck? So I learned how to do board hopping. I was doing the music research. And then I said, what else can I do? And he says, "Well, if you're really that hungry," he goes, "you can do promotions. You can be on the street team, and you can come in for the meetings during the day and help out in the office since you're already going to be here at night. And then you can go do promotions on the weekends. Let's do it." So I jumped in on that. So I was doing board hopping on Sundays and the holidays when, the DJs were on vacation. So I would run, the boards for them. I was doing music research at night. And then on the weekends, I was going out and doing van hits and, giving out T-shirts and stuff and hitting the clubs. And, while the other DJs were doing their live broadcasts, I was the guy tossing the T-shirt out, going crazy. And I just wanted to learn as much as I can. I mean, the music that they were playing there and everything was just something that I really, really fell in love with. And it was a great time. And but to move forward a little bit, I never got the chance to go on air except for one time when we were doing this $1 million giveaway. And we were doing these special remotes where we were going out and we were signing people up. And what they had to do was put our bumper sticker on their car. Okay. And so we were going to give away $1 million. And the way it worked is that each week we were going to go out and start getting people and pulling people over that had the sticker on, and they would have to choose from an envelope. And so even though not always, there was some cash giveaways and tickets and things like that they would choose, but one person was hopefully going to get that $1 million. And we ended up giving it away. So in one of those events that we did, we had this big ass bus, and that's what they called it, the big ass bus, Power 106 bus. It was a tour bus. It had a production studio in the back and everything, so we could broadcast live. And back then we used to use microwave, so it was much different than now, than using cell phones and things like that. So we would do the live call-ins that way. And so we get to our destination, and Joe the Boomer Cervantes was the DJ that was supposed to be there. So I get a call from the program director, and he says, Joe's not showing up. And he goes, and of the 4 of you guys that are there right now, he goes, you're the only one that I think can pull this off. And I'm like, what? Pull what off? He's like, I need you to do the call-ins today. And I was like, but I've never done that before. And he's all, look, man, it's 1 minute. You're just going to talk about 1 minute. He goes, jot down these notes, get a piece of paper, boom, boom. And he goes, just write this down. And I'm going to give you word for word. He goes, we're going to write 5 scripts, real short ones, 1 minute long. Just copy what I tell you to say. So he gives me a script and I write it down. He goes, this is going to be your first call-in. This is going to be your second call-in. It's going to be your third call-in. Just read it as natural as you can. Start practicing right now. You're on. Don't screw it up. I'm like, So I had been going to school, Los Angeles City College, and I was doing commercials and stuff and messing around, learning how to do things in the broadcasting department there. And I said, just do what you do in the class. Just do what you do in the class. Just forget about the people and all this stuff, because we would have to come out and get the crowd reaction and everything. And I'm like, literally, I grabbed the microphone and I was like this. And so I go on and I was all like, hey, what's going on? And that's where I got my party people, because I was looking at the crowd and I'm all like, hey, what's up, party people? This and that. And back then I went by my first name, Hector Gonzalez. So I used Hector G back then. So I was like, I'm Hector G from Power 106. And here we are. I forget where it was. And this and that. And I remember for some reason, my tongue got tied when I wanted to say, we're here registering people for the $1 million giveaway. So I ended up saying, we're here registering people for that $1 million giveaway. And it sounded like I just like, and I freaked out. I was just like, just keep going in my head. I'm just like, just keep going. I did it. Boom. And I was all like, cool. And then, the guy that was in studio tells me, hey man, that was pretty good. You're not bad. And I was like, okay. By the third one, I needed to do 5 call-ins. By the third one, I was having fun. So then I started talking to the program director. What do you think? What did you think of the call-ins? He goes, yeah, you got a good voice. He's all like, it sounded good. He goes, but you definitely need, some polishing. He goes, we might be able to work something. He goes, maybe you could start coming in the overnights and watching Tony Toledo on the air. And Tony Toledo was the overnight guy. So now I'm doing promotions. I'm doing the board hopping. I'm doing music research, and I'm coming in at midnight just shadowing this guy, trying to learn. But then they end up switching the program director. So that program director that was starting to mentor me takes off, and they bring this other guy in, Rick Cummings. And so I kind of had to start from scratch because he had other plans for people and stuff. And I was like, okay. At that time, my father was working at this Spanish station called K-Love, which is like the biggest Spanish station here in Los Angeles, and tells me, there's an opening over here for promotions director, and it's way more money than what you're making over there. Think about it. He goes, but don't waste too much time. And so I'm sitting there. And so I said, I got to talk to Rick. And I go over there, and I just told him, look, there's something that's come up. I said, my passion is here. I said, but I need to think about the future, and I need to think, my financial status and stuff, and blah, 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 blah. And he says, look, he goes, I would like you to stay. He goes, right now, he goes, I cannot guarantee you that I'm going to get you on air. He goes, I like your style. I like your work ethic, and I like your voice. But right now I got other plans. I have to really, refurbish. And by this time, they were already contemplating going to hip hop. When I was there, it was more freestyle. So hip hop was not my thing. So when I started hearing that, I said, I don't think I want to be on a hip hop station. So I took the chance and I took the job at K-Love, and I became the promotions director. So I'm going to try to fast forward so I can tell you as to where I, got on air. I ended up doing a bunch of different stations in Los Angeles. I worked at K-Love, went on. I started doing a lot of live call-ins on weekends and stuff. And then I ended up working for this nightclub called Pappy's Nightclub, which was a Spanish rock club. Prior to that, I was doing the Shark Club, and I was doing all these house venues and stuff, playing house music and EDM, having a great time. And my brother tells me, I'm doing this club on Saturday nights. Are you spinning anywhere? And I said, no. And he goes, why don't you come join me? He goes, it's Spanish rock. And I was like, Spanish rock? I'm like, what the heck is Spanish rock? He goes, it's kind of like K-Rock, but in Spanish, like, like the 80s new wave stuff. And I was like, oh my God, because to me, I never really listened to, anything other than what like my parents would listen to. And, my aunts and uncles, they were listening to mariachi and all these other groups, grupos and trios and all this stuff. And I was like, what the heck? And I'm like, what the hell is he spinning? And I was thinking it was probably some little ugly nightclub. And when I got there, it was actually pretty cool. It was like, 80s new wave. And I was like, it's not bad. So he says, I just need you to work the lights. And then at midnight, I need you to do an electronic set. And I was like, all right, cool. So I was getting like $150 to work the lights and to do this set. Then he tells me, well, he goes, there was a reason why I brought you over here. He goes, because I don't want to DJ no more. He goes, and I was thinking maybe you could take it over. I'll give you all the music and you do it. I said, all right, yeah, sure. Why not? So it's a little more money. I end up getting pretty good at it, at mixing the Spanish stuff. And so I kind of started to make a name for myself. And at this point, he and the owner of the club, they say, let's launch a public access radio and play nothing but this Spanish rock en español. And I'm like, all right, cool. And we called it La Onda, and which kind of means it's like, it's what's in, this is what's in. And he ends up hiring this other guy to be the announcer, and I'm doing the DJing. So I'm mixing on air and the other guy is DJing, but he was really boring. He was like, this is supposed to be like a high energy rock station, all pumped up. And he gets on and he's all like, welcome to La Onda, your station for Spanish rock. And my brother's all like, no, dude, this is like upbeat. You got to do it. So the guy lasted like 3 weeks. And my brother's like, we got to find somebody else. And he says, you know what? I can't get anybody. You're going to have to go on. I'm like, dude, in Spanish? I'm all like, no. My Spanish back then, I could speak it, but it was not good at all. And so he says, you're going to have to do it. I need help and I need to get it going. I go, why don't we just play mixes? He goes, no, because we got to talk about stuff. Because we're going to try to get sponsors and we got to say this, we got to say that. I'm like, okay. Now, mind you, remember I said that I used to go by Hector G. And so at this point, I was working at another station called When it was another Spanish station. And I was using my name on the weekends, doing call-ins and stuff, saying Hector G and blah, blah, blah. And so so I go on and, I'm just trying to do the best that I can. And every time that I mess up or I can't think of the word in Spanish, I'm just going to say it in English because I don't know how to say the word, And so I started doing that. And it kind of starts to take off because kids back then that's how they were speaking. They were speaking what we call pocho, English, Spanish. So the Spanglish. And I end up just kind of rolling with that. And I start making a name for myself. And the owner of the radio station that I was officially working at says, hey, I heard you're at another radio station. What is up with this? That's conflict of interest. So I started explaining to him, no, well, look, my brother's doing this and yada, yada, yada. And he says, well, I'll tell you what, because it's not really competing with us, I'll let you do it. And I was like, cool, thanks. But you can't use your real name. Change your name. Like, what the hell am I going to call myself, And he's like, I don't know. I don't care. He goes, but if you want to continue doing it, you have to change your name. Otherwise, you have to make a choice. And I'm like, oh, so I go and I tell my brother, this is what's going on. He goes, well, we'll figure it out. Just, think of some cool names and stuff. And I was like, all right. For some reason, I always liked the name Tristan and my brother's name was Thomas. So I thought that's kind of a cool name, Tristan Thomas. I thought, but then I said, that's not going to fly with the Latin community. Tristan Thomas. It sounds too Anglo, it's not going to be, they're not going to relate to it. So the week that it's like 2 days before I'm supposed to go back on air and I'm thinking of a name, I'm thinking of my name. And the only person that ever called me by my middle name was my grandmother. Hector Fernando. She was like, Hector Fernando, venga, come here. Hector Fernando. Okay. So I'm at the store for whatever reason. I'm paying and they ask for my ID. And as I'm putting my ID back in, I see my name, Hector Fernando Gonzalez. I said, Fernando G. And then I roll the R in Spanish, Fernando G. I go, hey, that kind of sounds cool. And I am doing the Spanglish thing. So I'll do my first name, Fernando, say it in Spanish, and then the G in English. That's kind of cool. So I tell my brother, and he goes, roll with it. So that's how Fernando G was born. But the funniest thing about all of this is that one Saturday, I was doing the show under Hector G, the way I normally did it. And the next Saturday, the only difference was that I changed my name to Fernando G. And the people start calling in and they start saying, hey, man, you're way better than that other guy.
That's silly.
Freaking hilarious.
You know,
And I'm like,
I was wondering about Fernando G, and I was thinking about this before our interview. I was like, that's cool. He just used his name. Like sometimes I ask, how did you get your name? Well, I didn't know, and now I know.
That's how it all came about.
Yeah.
So the next step was, how can I get on a real radio station? Because this is just a public access one day out of the week. So this radio station, Super Estrella, opens up and they start playing, Spanish rock and pop and, and it's very cool and hip. And it's the in thing at the moment with the Latin community and the teens and the younger, audience. So of course I want to be on the station, I want to get on it. So I start sending demos of what I was doing on this little public access show. And I was sending demos every 2 weeks to the program director. And after a year, he finally calls me, says, I want to talk to you. Says, let's chat. So he ends up offering me a gig. The original concept was that he liked what I was doing because the way I was doing my show, even though it was in the evening, I was running it like a morning show. I had skits and a bunch of stuff, and then we would DJ the music, and it was just a lot of fun. And he says, I really like what you're doing. I like the skit that you did, and this and that. He goes, so I want to bring you in because we're going to make some changes with the morning show. He goes, so I would like you to take over the morning show. And I was like, oh my God, that's freaking awesome. I was like, morning drive. I was like, no way. He says, but because of contracts and stuff like that, we have to wait a little bit. And, when the contract is up, we're going to let this person go. And we're going to slowly transition you. So what we're going to do is we're going to put you in overnights, and then we're going to bring you in middays, and then we're going to bring you in the morning, just so that we keep it, I was like, cool, yeah, let's do it. All right. So I started doing overnights, and I'm all excited. I'm doing my thing, and I'm happy, and I'm submitting mixes for the weekend mix show and getting my name out there. And then time goes by, and the person's contract comes up, and then that person ends up being let go. But somehow some other guy gets put in the midday, and the midday guy gets put in the morning show. And I was like, well, that's kind of not what he told me. And it turns out that not only they were letting the morning guy go, but they were letting the midday guy go. So they let the midday guy just do like 2 weeks in the morning show and then let him go. Then the guy that interviewed me ended up taking over the morning show, and I got stuck with overnights for like 3 years, getting minimum wage.
Wow.
So I was like, damn. And then a friend of mine calls me and tells me that there's another station that's going to pop up. And he says, I'm kind of involved. He goes, I want to talk to you. And I was like, okay. And it turns out that it was at the time, Los Angeles here, we had a station called Y107. And that was kind of like competing with K-Rock out here, which was like alternative. And they were doing indie stuff and, kind of competing directly with K-Rock, but it didn't fly. So the company ended up saying, we're going to flip it and we're going to compete with Super Estrella because they don't have any competition. So I end up getting hired, more money, prime time, 7 to midnight. And I bring my mix show and I start doing it. So what I did was, at this station, I was using my bilingual format. But what I started doing was not just playing the Spanish rock and the pop that everybody was playing. I started incorporating, general market hits. So I started bringing in songs, like 80s hits and stuff that people would be like, whoa, I didn't expect that one and stuff. And so I started kind of mixing a little bit of both. And I was doing my Spanglish, spiel on air, and the thing takes off. And I end up competing directly with like the big boys, not just Super Estrella, but with Power 106 and Kiss FM and their mix shows. And so I I did really good all the way up until the point where the station ends up selling to another company. And who do they sell to? The owners of Super Estrella, the direct competition. And so they wipe all of us out. They get us all out. And so that was kind of like the biggest part of my radio career. I still work in radio. I still do stuff for stations in Vegas, but that was pretty much it. I worked for many years after that behind the scenes. I became the marketing promotions director for a few other stations. The last ones that I worked at was a company called SBS, which owns Mega 96.3 and La Raza 97.9 here in Los Angeles. So I was handling those stations, doing event marketing and concerts and producing all kinds of different things, and always doing voiceovers in the background, commercials and things like that. So that's kind of my radio career. Long story, huh?
Woo! Love that. So when's your book coming out?
Right?
Wow. Yeah, I think it sounds like there's like a lot of politics with radio, and I kind of
Oh
picked
yeah.
up on that from when I lived in the Bay Area, and seeing them letting go different DJs that had been, on Power 106.1, I think it
Yeah.
is there, and yeah, I only grew up with a couple radio stations. We had a variety station and a country station, and we do have our local station, which I started to train to be a fill-in before COVID hit, and
Oh wow.
it was a bit intimidating, to say the least, and it feels like a lot of pressure. I mean, there's pressure as an event DJ, as a club DJ. There's
Oh
pressure
yeah.
as a DJ. There's nerves. You're relying on technology, and you have to problem solve, and you have to problem solve fast. But one thing I was really scared about was with the radio station was like dead space, or like answering a call, like I don't know, like
Yeah.
all of that. So a big
Yeah.
learning curve, I would think, and through all that experience you just kept gaining more experience, and I have to commend you on how hungry you were for it,
Yeah.
like
It was I mean, I always had a passion for music. I just always loved it. And being in radio, because I had been around it, my entire childhood, it was just kind of came like second nature. My father, he was an amazing talent, and he ended up winning 11 golden microphone awards for his journalistic uh interviews and things that he did. He did things like he interviewed a hijacker with a gun to his head here in Southern California. This was back in the 70s. This guy says, I want the media there. And he goes, and I want somebody from the Spanish media. My dad gets picked. And so he jumps on this plane, and the guy has a gun to his head while my dad's recording him, asking him questions and doing all this stuff. So he gets a golden mic award for that. He did this other interview where he went to find out what it was like to be an illegal and cross the border illegally. So he went undercover with microphones and everything and got himself a coyote to cross him over. And he went through the river, the Rio Grande, and the whole bit, the whole 9 yards, recorded the whole ordeal, which was pretty intense to say the least, and very sad and tragic for many people that were around him. But he got another one for that. I mean, just so many things that he did, for the Hispanic community and radio in itself, that he really, did well for himself and was awarded for it. So I have a lot of what can I say, respect for all the things that he did, and the things that he instilled in me, which was to just his thing to me was like, no matter what happens, don't put your head down, head up high, and just keep pushing, just keep moving forward, just keep moving forward. And that, my dad passed away 3 years ago, and that'll never leave me. No matter what happens, just head up high and keep going, just keep going no matter what. So that
wow.
I definitely have.
Yeah, well, it's so important that we lead by example for our children. And I
Yeah.
see, my husband and I are both DJs, so I see our 8-year-old son, he's just rapping, and he's,
Cool.
beatboxing, and he's he's like almost better than me at rapping. Almost. And so that's really cool. So
Yeah.
all of that. So what is going on now with you? What have you been doing, and to stay in the mix during
Well,
COVID, and what's
I did. Well, I do own a company called Elite DJs and Event Planning, which was what I started to do after I left radio, which was back in 2013. So I decided, okay, what am I good at? What do I do? Okay, well, I know how to DJ, I know how to do voiceovers, and I know how to produce events. So I said, well, I'll do an event planning company, but focusing more around the DJ aspect of things. So I launched that, and everything was going great um, up until 2020. Boom, COVID comes in and hits. But like I said at the beginning, to me, I think it was a blessing in disguise. Even though it's very tragic what we're going through, um, for me it was a blessing because it helped my creative juices start flowing. Something that I had wanted to do for a long time was figure out a podcast of some sort, and I just didn't know how to come about it, how to do it, the technical aspects, or even what I was going to do. And so as COVID hit, I started seeing DJs, streaming live and, doing their sets and stuff. But at the same time, I started seeing everybody getting kicked off. And, and, because of the music rights and all this stuff. So I said, well, what else can I do aside from mixing live? And so I said, well, let's do a podcast. I said, what can I do? And I said, well, I don't want to talk about, just what everybody else is doing, like, reviews and tutorials. And so what else can I do? And I said, well, through my experience, I've come across many DJs that I've known, from childhood all the way up until my last radio gig, and I still keep in contact with them, so I'll just interview them. And literally the first one that I did was with my buddy Joe Casillas, who is very known here in Los Angeles. He was a pioneer DJ. He would build his own sound systems, his own lightings, and then go throw these massive parties. I mean, where he was having 2,000-3,000 people, and it was just packed. And these, back in the day, they used to have these big walls of speakers and stuff. And he just became like an icon here. And so he was my first interview. And then I interviewed AJ Mora, and then I just started saying, okay, I think that's the gimmick. That's the part, is like, how did DJs get started and what it took to get to where they are today. And you were my first female DJ.
And you're my first male DJ.
Go figure.
That's funny. Thanks, universe. That's cool.
Yeah, we all paid it forward. That's cool. No, and that was really cool with you. I was like, I started saying, okay, I'm gonna reach out to the people that I know. But then I saw you at the Mobile Beat virtual conference this year, and I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. She has a really cool backstory. So I started following you. And I don't think there was a day that went by where you weren't posting something cool that really caught my eye, that caught my attention. And then I saw about your book, and I started looking up about you, started doing my research on you. And I was saying, this girl's got it going on, man. And I just loved your story about how you started, how you started off doing t-shirts, and your passion for music just grew from there. You were married to a DJ, so you're like, I want to do this and stuff. And I just really, really enjoyed that story. And I said, you know what? I want her to talk about it. And the thing that I liked even more was that how you're empowering female DJs. And I thought that was very cool. So I said, I got to have her on. And so I reached out to you thinking, she's probably just going to say, who is this guy? Whatever. But no, you responded, and I was like, cool. I was like, so yeah. So you became my first female DJ interview, which was a lot of fun. And so yeah, I started doing the podcast, and now I got, gosh, I don't even know how many DJs I've interviewed already, in a few months. It's been like, what, 4 or 5 months. And the likes of yourself to, Richard Vision, AJ Mora. Today I just launched the interview with DJ Laz, and I don't know if you remember him, but he had that freestyle hit, Mami, el negro está rabioso.
Oh my God, yes,
yeah, so him, and then he was the guy that discovered Pitbull out in Miami, and so they worked together. So he did that song, Move, Shake, Drop, which is move, shake, shake, now drop.
Yeah.
What your mama say? So he did that song with Pitbull and stuff. So I interviewed him. I got Swedish Eagle lined up. We interviewed our first Spanish international DJ, DJ Mijangos. If you look him up, he's got a huge background in producing Latin artists and, the likes of Enrique Iglesias, Jennifer Lopez, and, remixing for, big names in the Hispanic community. and he does his own tracks, and now he just launched his own school. So I just been knocking on doors and stuff, and I just said, I want to try to get as many DJs, and it doesn't matter where they're from. If people follow them, I want to hear their story. I want to know how they learned, how they discovered DJing, how they learned to beat mix, and the struggles that they've had. Like I interviewed Brian Red. To me, Brian is a big inspiration because of his physical limitations that he had because of his stroke, but nonetheless, he's got like my father's mentality, just keep going, keep going, keep going. And that to me is a big inspiration. DJ Laz, he was born also with physical limitations. He was born without ligaments in his spine and all this other stuff. And they said he wasn't going to walk. And now look at him. Not only is he walking, but he's a huge success. So those are the types of stories that I look for, that, to interview people that are inspiring others and just out there making it happen. So that's kind of part of what I'm doing. But as it started to take off, I started saying, okay, again, my creative juices started flowing. And so what else can I do? Well, going back a little bit, when I was doing the radio shows and I had my mix show and everything was going great, I had record labels that started coming to me asking me if I'd be interested in doing some remixes. So I was able to do a few remixes. I did like 6 remixes back then. I did one for Enrique Iglesias, Moenia, Paulina Rubio, Control Machete, and a few others. And they did okay, And so I started to work on producing some original tracks, but I just wasn't feeling it back then. And I wasn't getting the right sound. So, and then I ended up having a disaster with a computer that lost a bunch of my files and all these tracks that I had worked on. And to get that inspiration back was really difficult. So I kind of stopped producing for a while. But recently, thanks to my son, he inspired me because one day he's in a music class and he's learning guitar and he's learning the baritone and doing all this other stuff. And then he saw my MIDI keyboard downstairs. He's like, "Daddy, can I play with the keyboard?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Go ahead." So one day I'm here working on the computer, and then all of a sudden I hear the theme to Beverly Hills Cop. Dun, 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 but all in perfect key. And I wasn't paying attention because I could just hear it lightly in the background. And then I keep hearing it, repeating it and over and over. And I'm like, who the heck is playing that song? And I go, and it's my son on the keyboard playing it. Not just one hand, 2 hands. And I'm like, where did you learn that? He goes, I just heard it and I tried to figure it out. And I kind of figured it out. And I said, wait a minute. So I pull out his iPad. I said, this is GarageBand. He goes, I know GarageBand. I go, let me plug this in for you. Come up with something. And he comes up with this little 1.5-minute loop. And he put a drum track down. He laid down a bass line and came up with a finger line. He goes, this is pretty neat and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm going back to producing. So now I'm working on my first original track right now. I hope to launch it pretty soon. I was hoping before the end of the year, but it's probably going to be more likely along the beginning of the year. It's called Pure Thought, Pure Energy is the first track. It's on the house, tech house style. And I don't know. Let's see. We'll see what happens. I'm liking the way it's coming out. And so that's kind of what I'm working on now. And I'm going to be really getting more involved with that because it's been a passion of mine. Music, like I said, was a huge passion of mine. And I've always wanted to do it. And I think that now is better than ever, so why not?
Yeah, absolutely. That's so cool. I can't wait to hear it. It's something I think about too. My husband's a producer. Like, we have a music studio. Like, when the time
That's
is
huge.
right, my son has apps on his phone to make beats, and he's got the neighbor kids making beats, and
Yeah.
it is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. So that's exciting. Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. And especially like right now where we're, like here in Los Angeles, I mean, I'm sure probably where you're at as well, I mean, we're in complete lockdown, we're shut back down again, where things were slowly starting to open up and stuff. And it does get stressful, because like you say, we got kids, my wife, she works for the school district here, and she was still going 3 days out of the week. And so I was still doing my stuff for the radio station, because I help them out with marketing and promotions and sales packages and commercials and things like that. And I work for some agencies that I do Spanish voiceovers for them. And sometimes you'll hear my voice in Vallarta supermarkets there and things like that. And so I have to focus on that. But at the same time, I got my kids over here doing their virtual school. So I got to make sure they're there. And then at 12 o'clock, I got to make their lunch. And then it's like, okay, boom, do your thing. And then after school, I got to make sure that they're still doing their homework and that they're not just jumping on the iPads and their computers to play games and stuff. So you got to kind of set a routine. And it gets like, you get stir crazy and you're not going out as much and stuff. So I took up walking. I said, you know what, this is better time than ever, because I'm, as you can tell, I'm kind of a pretty big guy. And I decided that I needed to change my life and completely, I mean, with this pandemic, it also made me think, about my kids and being strong for them. And it's not just strong mentally, but you got to be strong physically. Unfortunately, right now we're living in a very ugly time, where we're seeing so much division, so much hate, and you're seeing so much violence. And I think about, very worst case scenario. I can be pretty dramatic sometimes, but I say, what if one day all hell breaks loose and I got to physically defend my kids? How am I going to do that? It's like, I got to be prepared. I got to be ready for this. I'm not a man about having guns in my household or anything like that. Um, and I'm more of a peaceful guy, but if I have to defend my own, I will at all costs. So I figured right now is the time to start getting physically fit and do it. So I started doing that. I started walking. I started off with just 2 times around the park here, which is like less than a mile. And then I reached a mile and a half. And now I'm doing 4.5. And I've added the jogging and running, started my weight training yesterday. So pretty soon I'm going to be pretty handsome. No.
I love that, Will. I love that because I was actually thinking about this with you too, because I've seen your posts and your journey with that, and I've been incorporating running. I put the run and RunDat this last year or
Yeah.
so, and I ran this morning, and it's true. And one thing I think about is like if I had to run from a bad guy, like
Right.
like if someone was trying to steal me, I would want to be able to run. And I think it's a little bit of a natural thing with the fathers of wanting to protect, if
Yeah.
apocalypse or shit goes down, you got to protect your
Yeah.
family. Yes, you
Yeah.
want to be strong physically
Yeah.
and mentally.
And that was one of the things is, um, I reached 300, close to 380 pounds. So, and I'm nowhere close to my goal, but I'm getting there, I mean, so far I've lost, just over 20 pounds. And I want to do it over a long period of time. I don't want to do it fast. Some years ago, I did go see a nutritionist and I lost 60 pounds in 3 months, but like that, zero exercise. It was simply what I was eating, but boom, gained it right back and some. So when I went to see my doctor and I told her about my plan, she says, you have a good plan. She goes, but make sure that you don't lose the weight like you did last time, because you saw what happened. You're going to balloon right back up and you always end up gaining more pounds. She goes, it's better to just gradually go. And she goes, and if there's a week, say for example, you start going down, but then all of a sudden you go back up, it's okay. That's normal. She says, but then just keep it gradual. And it's been working. Um, I am eating healthier for sure. But at the same time, I'm changing certain habits. It's like, instead of eating, like having dinner like 8:30, 9 o'clock, now we're having dinner at 6:30, 7 o'clock, and if I feel hungry later on than that, then I'll get like an ice pop, or I'll get a rice cake with peanut butter and banana, just to, satisfy that and not eat so much. And, drinking a lot more water, a lot more tea, less alcohol, but but it's helping out. It is. I mean, it's funny because just today, I walked in the door and my wife goes, "Wow, she goes, you're definitely looking a lot thinner." And I'm like, "All right, it's working." Since she sees me every day, it
Yeah.
doesn't. You don't really, notice. But for my wife to tell me, I said, "All right, cool, we're getting there." So I still got a long way to go, but I'm excited.
Yeah, I think that, there's no better time than right now to start creating those healthy habits. I'm with you
Yeah.
on that. It's a lifelong goal, always drink more water. I have a rule, never say no to water. I knew that exercise was the missing link, that dancing drunk was not really legit. Like I would be, I want to dance, and drink,
Yeah.
socially. Like,
Right, right, right.
and another cool thing is, yeah, being that role model for your children. I enrolled my daughter in going for a mile run with me this week, and
Nice.
she kind of hasn't been exercising much lately, and usually she's in
Yeah.
sports year round, and she's like, "Whoa, I'm out of shape," and she was super fast when we were running a few months ago, but we both kind of fell off. So it's like, get back
Yeah.
on the train. I joke I fell off the produce truck, and then get back on that produce truck and make those salads. I'm enrolling these habits with my daughter. She's 14. It's like Sunday prep day, like make a nice big salad that we could eat off of for a few days,
There you
maybe
go.
do some juicing that we can drink for a few days. And so way to go. It's just awesome because it feels good, right? It might
Yeah,
be
it
hard.
does. It's funny. At first, it didn't. I got to be honest with you.
Oh
For a
yeah.
guy my size, trust me, it did not feel good. And I was like, but I think that the thing is like, again, I started hearing my dad, because my dad was always telling me, gotta lose weight, gotta lose weight, gotta lose weight, and stuff. And so then I just said, you know what, just keep going. Don't stop. Don't stop. And I go, that's the hardest part. And then I just kept pushing myself, kept pushing myself. And it's funny because it sounds kind of cliche, but I'm right now, like when I'm jogging, it's funny because I started off very, short distance because I was like, I was like freaking dying. But then I said, okay, you know what? Just go to that spot. Go to that spot right there. Just keep going. You can do it. And then I made it to that spot. Okay, you know what? You made it to that spot. Just go to that little post right there. Just get there, get there. And it's seriously psyching me out. And now I'm jogging much further now. And I'm like, okay, I'm feeling good about that. My son, my oldest son, Tristan, he likes exercising. There's times where I walk in his room and all of a sudden he's on the floor just doing sit-ups by himself, just out of the blue, or push-ups or something. And so his school, they gave him this YouTube page that has a bunch of different exercise, upper body, lower body, cardio, weights, all this stuff. And so the other day, just a couple of days ago, my wife says, "What if we join in on with his workout?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why not? Let's go." So all four of us, my two boys, my wife and I, we were right here doing our exercise all together, following the routine. Of course, they did much better than I did because some of them were like, "Okay, yeah, no, I'm not gonna be able to do that one," but we pushed it, and it was cool because we were all like motivating our each other. My youngest son, he's like daddy, loves to eat, and then he's a bigger guy, and he was kind of starting to get a little slow, and I'm behind him, just pushing him. I'm like, come on, son, you got this, you got this. Think about it like a taekwondo. They're trying to beat you up. Don't let it happen. Keep going. And then he just boom, he got back into it and started getting really aggressive. So it's kind of cool because it's like, as a family, we push each other, we help each other, to go to that next level, to not give up. And I'm getting really excited about where things are going with this, because before, it was like I was really tired all the time, and it took me forever, literally, like to get up from my computer. I was just like, oh, I'll get up right now, I'll get up right now, and it was like, instead of standing up, I would roll my chair. It was like, and I was getting really tired of that, of getting really tired of being tired. So now I'm feeling, more energized and, more excited about things. So it's weird how it actually starts to change. You hear people talk about that and they say, oh yeah, no, your mental state and this and that. It does help, because you start to feel energized. There's times where I'm like, like now I get up and I can't stop. I start finding myself just kind of pacing back and forth. And I was kind of like that when I was younger, in my, early 20s. I was very hyper, and, my legs were always like, jittery and stuff. And people must have thought I was on speed or something, because I was always like this engine. And it's funny because now, the other day, I was giving that analogy to my buddy. I said, I feel like my engine's starting up again. It's kind of like, but it's slowly, it's going to start. And I said, I just got to get it to that point where I started, and then I'm just going to rev that sucker up, So it's like, it's happening, and it feels good. It feels good. And it's just a matter of pushing yourself and making it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I do the same thing. I did that same thing this morning with running. Okay, you can get to that sign, you can get to that mailbox, keep going. And it's such a mental game. And it's like your mind wants to be like, stop, take a break, or this is hard. And so anytime I hear that this is hard, I go, this is good. Hard is
Yeah.
good. Like that's
Yep.
one of my new mantras. Hard is good.
Yeah, no, you got to do it. For me, it's like sometimes, like obviously, with the weight that I have, my knees hurt, my lower back hurts and stuff, and I just start psyching myself out. I'm like, don't think about that. Think about that breathing. Take the deep breath. Because obviously still when I'm running, yeah, I'm going and I'm like, but I started to run out of breath real fast, and then I started going with friend of mine. He does a lot more healthier than me, and he jogs a lot and stuff like that. And he says, look, he goes, when you're feeling that, even though you're breathing, he goes, take a big deep breath and then slowly let it out. And then even though you're breathing heavy in between, he goes, when you feel like you want to give up, take that deep breath again. And I was like, okay, and boom, and that's been working. And it's like, so it is a lot of fun to learn more stuff, and you just gotta not focus on the pain or feeling tired and get those negative thoughts and start transitioning to go to that post, or just take it to the next level. Forget about what you're feeling on your knees. Listen to your breathing. Look at your surroundings, and just focus on anything else but all those negative things. And it starts to help little by little. It does not happen right away. There's some people that they start off, and 2 days later they're all like, nah, this ain't gonna work for me. No, you gotta make it a routine and do it. And I ain't no doctor or anything, but I just know what's working for me. So hopefully it'll help somebody else.
Yeah. My husband said that about when running. He's like, breathe through your nose, breathe through your nose.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for it reminds me of when I was preparing for Mobile Beat. I was so freaked out, like, oh, I can't even believe that this is happening, that I signed up to be a speaker at this convention. I'm going to be on this stage, and it's going to be probably 90% men, and I don't know them, and all this shit going on in my head. And then and the same thing, I signed up for a 10K last year, and my friends just like, just remember to have fun. How can you make this fun instead of building up all this anxiety of like, just visualize it working out, it being fun. You're gonna survive. You're not gonna hurt yourself. Like, you're not gonna fall on stage. You're not gonna pee yourself. You're
Like,
not gonna hurt yourself running. Like, all the things that we can
oh
create
my
in our
god.
head. So I have really been training my mind in the last few years to just reframe it. And another thing that I
Yeah.
learned is life is an enrollment game, and we are constantly enrolling ourselves and those around us. We enroll our kids to brush your teeth, go to bed, all the
Yes.
things. We're enrolling clients, we're enrolling people to hire us for our services, but we have to be enrolled in it first. Like, you enrolled
Yeah.
me in your podcast, I enrolled you. Like,
There we go.
well, have fun with it too. Like, I just had a sales call this morning for a wedding next year, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna enroll myself, I'm gonna enroll her, and I'm gonna have fun.
Yeah. And
Fun.
it's funny because when you start to get that mentality, it seems like things start to flow a little bit easier because you become more likable. It's like people start to kind of feel your vibe, and you're just kind of like you feel loose, you feel relaxed, and you know your stuff, you know what you have going on, and it's just a matter of just being positive about it and just letting loose. The cool thing, what I like about you is that you're not cocky, you're not, you don't think you're like, oh, Miss Thing and stuff like that. You're just natural. You're confident. And I really like that, but you're not a bitch. You know what I mean? It's like, you're just really cool and down to earth. And, like, I wasn't sure what to expect from you. I mean, I had never met you before other than what I saw on the virtual stage, on Mobile Beat. But there's people that you see them and they're all like, wow, that person looks cool. And then you meet them and it's like, what a dick. It's like, it's like, but you were not that person. You were, what I saw on the virtual stage is what I got when I met you. You're just you, and you're out there, you're doing your thing. And like I say, you're definitely an inspiration, man. You got your book going. Congratulations on that. You got your tutoring, all this other stuff. You got your podcast. I mean, you're just doing so much. And on top of that, you're a mother. So it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's a big task, but for sure, you definitely got it going on. So thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you so much with Moby. It was really funny because I was like, I think I'm the only speaker that was like laughing. Like I can't help myself. I laugh speak. Like that's my Spanglish, like I laugh while I speak, and get me around
Right.
Jamaicans and the patois will come out too. So like but this is me, and that's what you want to portray. And when we're doing it virtually and you're building this brand, it's like how do you show your personality? And even when I'm on sales calls with clients too, it's like being down to earth. I get that feedback,
Yeah.
and it's like that fine line of you really want to strive for professionalism, but also like this is who I am. So it's like,
Yeah.
and hopefully by just being authentic, you're going to attract all the right people and things into your life.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and then when we were interviewing, I thought, wow, he's a really good interviewer, and he knew all these things about me. Like he actually studied me. Like sometimes I go into interviews and I don't know anything about them. So it like inspired me to like do your homework, girl. Like
Yeah.
tighten up your process of how you do this. And
And that comes from the radio background,
yeah,
because on air, there's a lot of people, that they say, being a radio DJ, that's nothing, man. You just go on there and you just talk on the microphone. Okay, what are you going to talk about? You're not just going to say, hey, here's the new Pitbull song, here on Power 106. No, you got to come up with stuff, especially now with millennials whose attention span is like this, you know. And it's like you got to do the research. You got to know your current events. You got to know what's happening. You got to talk about many different things. And so you have to do show prep, And so that was something that I said, okay, I gotta, DJs that I knew, that I grew up with and I still hang out with, I knew their story. So there was really not much research to go on. But like you, I knew nothing about you other than what I was seeing on Instagram. So I said, okay, let me find her. And then, I ended up going to your website and reading up on you and checking everything out and looking at all your videos. And I was saying, oh, this is cool. So
oh,
you got to do it.
yeah, well, thank you. And I really appreciate the radio drops you did for me because I joined an online radio station the last few months, and it's been
Nice.
a learning process for sure. And like I'm still trying to figure it out. And it's like at first I pre-recorded these little mixes, and I was, saying like, well, that was Damian Marley living it up, or that was Taurus Riley, and like trying to like do it like that. And then it's like, okay, interact with the people on Twitch. And then it's like sometimes we have sponsors and it's all new, and then like the kids are running around coming in and out when I'm doing it. And like the tech stuff, all of it is like such a learning experience. So I'm still figuring that out. But I listen to Pitbull Globalization a lot in my
Yeah.
car, and I love that station. I listen to the Heat sometimes too, and like the radio personalities, like it's a thing. And I've been told for years that I had a good voice when I used to call in to win concert tickets. They love my enthusiasm and excitement, and so I think that's a gift of mine. Maybe that has come just naturally. And I remember one time this old wise man was like, it's all about enthusiasm, and like that stuck with me. And you have an amazing voice. Your drops are awesome. Like, so
Thank you.
big up yourself on that.
Well, I got to do a shameless plug because I do have a website for the DJ drops. So edjpro.com. So if anybody out there needs DJ drops, hit me up.
Yeah, for sure. I highly recommend his drops, and
Thank
we'll
you.
post all of your links in the comments and everything. And if you have any special offers for our audience, we'll share that too.
For
So,
sure. For sure. Yeah, I'll put a little package together and I'll shoot that over to you for you to offer to your viewership and listenership. That'd be cool. Thank you.
awesome. Well, thank you so much. How can we find you online other than that website? How can we follow you?
You can definitely follow me on both Facebook and Instagram at I am DJ Fernando G. And of course, the podcast, youtube.com/DJ Fernando G. And it is now also up on Spotify and Google Podcasts. I'm still trying to get on the
iTunes.
Apple Podcasts, the iTunes, yeah, and stuff. So we'll get there, but at least you can find it as on Spotify. You can find it as DJ to DJ with DJ Fernando G. And yeah, that's about it. And of course, edjpro.com for the DJ drops. And that's the main thing. And then elitedjs.net for my, event production for those that here in Southern California.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being a part of this, and keep in touch. And everybody follow Fernando G, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Stay safe.
Go to my website to claim your free gift, a digital copy of my best-selling book, How to Start a DJ Business. www.djrundat.com. Follow me on all social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at DJ RunDat. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. To learn how you can book me or work with me, go to my website or email me at michelle@djrundat.com.